Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ayom. So, the personality traits for us to make the assessment of our own personality chart so that we can examine our own personal spiritual evolution, where we're at. As I said last week, it's not for anybody else to examine where you are at, and it's not for you to examine where they are at, but it's for you to examine where you are at. So you get a benchmark of where you're at by looking at this portion of the Gita, also in Vedanta treatises, as you know. So just a recap. The more you drop the fruit of action, the more you're able to loosen up your desires so you can drop it. So you fulfill your desires, in fact. So that practice of Tyaga becomes that state of sannyasa. You're dropping the fruit, the backdrop of that ego, that pressure of desire gets loosened up. So you're able to look at that objectively and also put it in its perspective place and handle it, deal with it. So you don't have that vasana eventually. So these traits of sattva, rajas, and tamas, sattva being the purest trait in the individual of serenity, poise, objectivity, clarity. Rajasik being that frenzied activity, very desirous, tires you. Sattva is effortlessly done and infuses your energy. Rajas takes a tremendous effort to perform those sort of activities, normally with some self-interest or interest to get something out of it, normally in the material field, where sattva is aiming where you're evolving yourself in a spiritual sense. It's internal, it's not external as such. In fact, all these qualities are internal, but the crave to look outwards, the rajas, to go inwards, it's promoting sattva. And that Tamasik trait of lethargy, inertia, that temperament of indolence, ignorance, full of agitation. It's like sort of procrastination. It's all upside down. You see all the negative things as that's what you should be. You don't actually even see that. It just becomes that. Tamas. So we looked at Sattvik knowledge first. He who sees the divinity in the diversity. Rajasik knowledge. He who sees diversity in the divinity, just the opposite. And Tamasic knowledge, just like these are little snippets to remind yourself where your mind is sliding, where it's going off track, you pull it back. And Tamasik knowledge sees a part and thinks it a whole. The society is generally quite, what's the word, well versed on seeing a part and thinking it's a whole currently, generally the world over. They don't see the whole picture, see a part and think it's a whole, opposed to seeing the divinity in the diversity. When you see the divinity in the diversity, anything is possible to achieve, meaning you've got to put the work in, but the enthusiasm to live, to get to what you've got to do, obliterates that Rajas and Tamas. So Sattvik, Rajasik, Tamasik knowledge, then Sattvik, Rajasik, Tamasik action is what we started on last week. So Sattvik action, when you perform actions which you're obliged to do, obligatory actions, not based on your like or dislike, not after the fruit. It's done effortlessly because there's an ideal in place to serve. Whereas a Rajasic action is full of tremendous effort. It's longing for the fruit of action. It's full of desire, craving. Don't understand to contribute to the whole. You feel that I'm the doer when you're performing that action. I'm important. So focused on the fruit. It obliterates the smoothness of functioning in action because there's always a worry and anxiety going on. It accentuates the ego. The work tires you, so you need a vacation. The goal's got too much self-interest and you're not able to serve out others. You may even dress it up as though you're serving others. So many times I've heard people saying, oh, we're doing this to serve the cause, but they're actually just serving their own interests. So what ought to be done, that Sattvik action, is done effortlessly, not craving for the fruit, just what ought to be done to take you to the truth, that divinity. Rajasic is just the opposite. And then Tamasik action. Tamasik action, how is that undertaken? When one's confused, doesn't consider the ability of what their capacity is, but yet goes ahead because of the desire, or goes ahead blindly because others may be doing something, you also follow and do it. Think you should be doing X, Y, Z, not considering what your ability is, or the concern for others if it may harm them, but you get something out of it, even if it's of even a very low value. It's full of greed, ignorance for anybody else, and oneself even. And we're mentioning the actions of how a crash came about in 2008 in the economy. Out of nobody's questioning why did it come about. They're just attributing it to all other outward scenarios. But when one's greedy, things happen and everybody suffers it. So Tamasik action. So now, today, we start on Sattvik, Rajasic, Tamasik. If we complete actor, who is that? And perhaps if there's any question we can take up before we start 26. As well, we'll take anything up as we go. Guru.
Guruji, we saw about the action and we also saw the jnana. So can we infer that the Sattvik jnana will always lead to a Sattvik action? And Tamasik jnana probably would lead to a Tamasik action. Would that be a right statement to make about jnana and action being correlated?
Sattvik jnanam is where you're acting on you're seeing that, yeah, it's always leading you there. You see, you may, not you personally, an individual may have a heavy bulk of desires, but they turn their mind to serving to an ideal inwards. So maybe along the way, to one person, what may appear Tamasik, Rajasik, to them is actually leading them in the direction they're functioning on obligation to Sattva. You know, they may see things don't change overnight. You may start to get up at 4 in the morning or what have you, Brahma Muhurta. But it doesn't mean to say all your activities are going to be Sattvik because you choose to do certain external Sattvik activities, promote it. But slowly it promotes that, and slowly the Rajas begins to drop. So Sattvik jnanam, if you're focused on that knowledge to see the divinity in the diversity, your mind will always bring itself back when you don't do that. You know, a scenario may come and you may see something where you're upset at somebody and you feel that they did the wrong thing or something, and you look at the negatives and you feel it's their fault. But then if you remove it from that and actually see where you're party to it, or you step it up a notch and you see that was an activity in that circumstance would happen. It couldn't be helped. But behind that individual, with that understanding, you see at that individual's level, you see the divinity in them. You don't hang on to something which is negative. In actual fact, it's a reflection of yourself when you hang on to it. So you just see it for what it is and you move with it. So that jnanam, that ability in practice, action, and as the karta, the actor, you're carrying that Sattvik value, slowly it will change. It doesn't change overnight. You might be cultivating it, and then some desire props up and demolishes that value you have in you for that moment in time. So to make it consistent, you've got to participate in all of these consciously, be conscientious to think about what type of activity am I doing? What's the logic behind that? What is a Sattvik action? What is a Rajasic action? Am I doing that or that? Am I looking at above the individuality action, or am I looking at something more universal, or am I looking at something individualistic and then to find the fault? So it's a constant exercise. Which might start with the morning study. So if that answers your question, it's constant. So some aspect might be Rajasic in you. It might not be 100% Sattvik, but your focus may be going on that route. Tim.
Just to take Guru's question a little further, is it almost like a fruit machine? You know, you pull the handle and you get 3 different Sattvik, Rajasic and Tamasik. Could you have Sattvik knowledge be tamasic, be rajasic in one's actions, and be as an actor tamasic?
Yes, why not? You see, many people have this knowledge, Sattvik knowledge. They understood it, they've grown up with it. But their actions don't match up to what they know. So they don't actually have it really, but they know of that knowledge, as it were. But they may be very lethargic in their activities, and there may be very self-interest in their activity, yet they may be in that environment and have that knowledge. You could be sitting in an ashram and be totally tamasik. Nobody's watching you, you know? You could have all the paraphernalia around you. That's what happens often with spiritual leaders. They may be appearing spiritual in the sense that they're something divine, but in actual fact, their activities are not quite divine. They're Rajasik. Their minds might be thinking of something Rajasik, but yet they may have that Sattvik knowledge. They may be looking at that Sattvik knowledge all the time. But until you translate that knowledge into your thinking of that action and that you become that actor, it's not Sattvik really. So that happens. Or one facet of you may be of Sattva. You wake up, you do your study, but you may have you may not be exercising, so your body is all over the place. It's Tamasik in that respect. You know that part of your spiritual evolution is you've got to be physically fit, but you're Tamasik in some aspect of it. The desire weighs you down, so you've got to rid that bulk to change the focus. The mind's desire tricks you. So it can be a combination of all of them. The thing is to make it more predominantly Sattvik. You could be full of Sattvik knowledge. You could be a lecturer. You could be a researcher. But you don't have any practice of that knowledge. It could be quite Tamasik on the other side. Or the vice versa. You might be doing an action which is Sattvik without thinking of Sattvik knowledge, but that's just the nature. You do it for Lokasangha, you serve. You see that divinity. You may never have got that knowledge, read it, such. So the whole thing of this is to cultivate the sattva. If you're Tamasik, cultivate some rajas, get some momentum going, moving on whatever the Rajasic trait is. So once you get the idea in your rajas, that momentum, that you're to drop the fruit of action, then you start dropping that. Then it starts turning you inwards. It's a mechanism. Wherever you're at, you start moving with that. Yeah. Does it make sense? I used to have one relative, and where they lived, it's all what we call brahmanas in India, where they all lived. In the whole sort of that whole area where all the houses were. And when I was little, I couldn't understand that the brahmana, like, after he's got ready, he's eating his pan and he's spitting it on the floor. I can understand. You eat your betel leaf it is, pan. You spit that on the floor. Have you no regard if you've got that spirit for the whole? Have you no regard to spit it on your floor for somebody else to pass by? But there's no sense in there of what outside. They're thinking they're doing their prayers, they're doing the shlokas, and then they're also spitting at the same time on the floor. But they're supposed to be the Brahmana. So it's just the Brahmana's not with the paraphernalia, it's the person who implements that knowledge and raises themselves. Maybe that's just one aspect of them, which was Tamasik. Maybe they're Sattvik in all other respects. So we're a combination of all these traits, and we're there to evolve out of the Tamas to the Sattva. But I remember as a child seeing that and thinking, how is that fellow a Brahmana? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, we don't know. But as a child, I remember that. It looked the opposite of what I had assumed in my mind it to be. Assumption. We don't know. Um, 26.
Mukta sangonaham padi Rit utsahas samanvitaha Siddhya siddhya nirvikaraha Karta sattvika uchyate.
Guru, if you could read the verse.
Yeah. Verse 26. An actor free from attachment, not egoistic, endued with firmness and enthusiasm, unaffected by success and failure, is called Sattvika.
So now we're looking at Sattvik, Rajasik, Tamasik, Karta, actor. So how you actually do those actions. So what does it constitute? So an actor free from attachment, mukta sangaha. So when we do anything, we normally have some attachment to it, and we don't even see that. We're attached to it. You have to be acutely conscious to do something where there's no self-interest in it. You have to be quite aware. Just do it for its sake. You don't want anything out of it. It just needs to be done, you do it. But at the moment, maybe we do something because there's some attachment to it. That's why we do it. So not with ego. Everything we do is with ego. How can we get away from that? Everything we do is with ego, not egotistic. So that idea of when you do something, you're just a part of the whole. You've got to play your part, you just do that. It's not that you take anything as yours. Yeah, you do what you have to do, but you don't accentuate that only you can do it. You're part of a whole scheme of things. So you just got to play your part as you were part of that orchestra. So rather than to play separated, say you play your tune in the orchestra, you fall out of sync. But say you play what needs to be the tune to play in harmony. It's nothing to do with you just playing as part of the whole. No I and my. So that attachment destroys it. endued with firmness and enthusiasm. One needs to think about what cultivates enthusiasm. You know, the enthusiasm to get to that self, the enthusiasm to get to the truth, the enthusiasm to challenge yourself. How can I see divinity in everything? No, today you go away from the class, it enthuses you to see more than just yourself. When you see only yourself, that individual, and you want things to cater to you, you kill your enthusiasm. When you share things and connect up, it fuels the momentum and that enthusiasm. So when you're acting in that manner, you bring people with you. It's that enthusiasm. It really doesn't matter when you've got an ideal, whether you succeed or you fail in the activity, you just do what you're obliged to do. What does it matter? If it doesn't come out just as you think it should be, carry on, keep working on it. It will get there. As long as you're not getting stuck, worried, that worry and anxiety gets you stuck. So free from attachment. The best of worst of things can happen to you. You don't get concerned about it. You're just playing your part. You've got a consistency of purpose that fuels an enthusiasm to work. So if your ideal is self-centered, you will work for when you get what you want and stop when you've got it with no concern for anybody else. But that gives you the stress within. You get what you want, but your mind will be rattling about. There's a desire to go to the next. You never get satiated. But the reverse, that enthusiasm to work, when you've got a higher ideal, no selfishness, no motive, dhruti, steadfastness, a firmness in that enthusiasm. So you've got to think about it. What fuels your enthusiasm? What makes you get up? You know, in the morning, do you feel like, can't wait to get up? That's the enthusiasm. Can't wait to get up. Why do you feel that? Why can you feel that? What can promote that? Anybody? What fuels your enthusiasm? Mm-hmm.
Whatever activities fuel one's swadharma. If I, like, for example, if I'm an artist and I want to, explore my artistic talents, and I am going in the field where I'm going to see more artists, go to learn new techniques. That curiosity, if anything fuels our curiosity, that gives us the enthusiasm to want to pursue it.
So what fuels the curiosity? What will it always give the enthusiasm? What's got to fuel it? What fuels it?
It's the pursuit of something an ideal in your language that is above our everyday actions and activities and thoughts. So it's that suspicion that there is a self behind all that we do.
There's something bigger than yourself. You might feel there's an enthusiasm when you're pursuing something which is of a Rajasik nature, that you're going to get something out of it. And often in a Swadharmic nature is your nature, so it fuels the speed of it. But if that nature, whatever you're inclined to do, doesn't have a higher ideal in place, or an ideal which encompasses more than just you, for something bigger, then you're in trouble. You'll get the result, no doubt, but your mind won't be at peace. So enthusiasm cultivated, and you've got a higher ideal to go for. The bigger the ideal, the more the enthusiasm doesn't get dampened along the way of some rajas. Enthusiasm. So spiritual evolution is full of enthusiasm. If you're down in the dumps, or to be spiritual can't be without any humor or lightheartedness, or it's got to be with enthusiasm. Otherwise, what are you doing it for? I mean, not that you've got to get. If it's not lighthearted and it's a recognition that you can't get what you're after in the world. You've got to go within. So there's a curiosity within, ignited to get to some truth. Enthusiasm of something universal drives you no end, kicks you out of bed in the morning. It doesn't kick you out until you can't wait to get out. First thing in the morning, can't wait to get out, can't miss that early morning. That feeling, if you've missed it, you think, I missed the best part of the day, but then you carry on. Enthusiasm. Firm goal. Ideal. Enthusiasm doesn't falter. Then it doesn't really matter if you succeed or fail in your activities. You're moving forward with that obligation. You bypass the fruit. You maintain an enthusiasm. It doesn't matter. Let's keep going. Spiritual evolution. You have the most fun in life. Everything becomes it's like it's a pleasure. You're engaged in this adventure of serving. Enthusiasm to life. Even the doom and gloom, you look at it in some perspective. That happened. Okay, how can we do it a different way? That person's now not doing X, Y, Z. Okay, how can we do it? Oh, we don't know how to do this. Okay, let's figure out how we do it. That's the enthusiasm. There's something sparking to find the solution there and move with it. Sattvik. I mean, when you think of being spiritual, I don't know how often it's thought of as being full of enthusiasm or lightheartedness or fun or wow, we get up in the morning. It's not normally portrayed that way because the people themselves don't normally feel that, perhaps. Or it's all serious down in the dumps. I remember reading some philosophers and thinking, oh my gosh, they all sound so depressing. Do I really want to carry on listening? But when you read those true spiritual seekers, aspirants, or those who have reached a certain height, the enthusiasm which comes out, it's that expression, you feel, oh wow. Let's read it.
Verses 26, 27, and 28 cover Sattvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika type of Karta, actor. Sattvika Karta is an actor free from attachment. People become attached to beings, things, and to action they perform. Attachment is emotional bondage resulting from unintelligent preferential relationship with the object of attachment. A Sattvika actor is not bound by such preference or prejudice. Another distinct trait of a Sattvika actor is absence of ego, the egoistic notion, I am the doer. He considers himself a spoke in the wheel of life and not the sole architect of his person and action. A Sattvika actor further distinguishes himself with two essential qualities of perfection, dhriti, firmness, and utsaha, enthusiasm. Dhriti is consistency of purpose required for completion of action. Utsaha is an energetic, enthusiastic attitude towards action undertaken. A Sattvika actor possesses these qualities because of his high ideal in life. His conviction and determination to attain the ideal keep the two qualities alive in him. An actor endowed with the above qualities carries out his obligatory function, his duty and responsibility, does what he ought to do in life, nothing less, nothing more. Such a person is neither interested in nor affected by success or failure of his mission. Success or failure is the fruit of action, a result, an effect, while action is the cause. When an action is perfect, success inevitably follows. A Sattvika actor understands this truth, performs his obligatory duty to his best, with little interest in the result of action. He thus maintains an indifference towards success or failure.
So, before we move to 27, how do we gain our enthusiasm? What promotes it? How do we maintain our enthusiasm? Do you think of being spiritual as being enthusiastic? You could phrase this lots of different ways, but it's to think about this. Anyone? What's the key thing to cultivate this in yourself? Vidya.
I mean, one of the contradictions in this verse, Parvaji, is where he's saying about samanvitaha being balanced, but he's also talking about utsaha, which is the enthusiasm. So at a glance, one would think, should I be enthusiastic or should I be balanced? I mean, for a naive person who's not practicing and understanding the subtlety of the utsaha, it seems contradictory. Should my emotions be in check and balance, or should I be enthusiastic? But whereas what we are trying to establish here is that the enthusiasm comes because we're not worried about the outcome of what we're going to do. Our actions are going to be unselfish, or even better, become selfless actions. And there is no I and me, my, there's no katratva bhavana. We're just going to go about doing what we ought to do, irrespective of what the outcome is going to be. So that in itself would give us the energy. Very often, if I'm sitting for an exam there is that compulsion for me to pass the exam. So I'm always concentrating on passing the exam. So that adds the stress. And therefore, the enthusiasm is pretty much nullified. Whereas when I'm not worried about the outcome, the utsaha, the enthusiasm, flows freely without any ego or the phala, the action's success, impending my emotions.
Okay. So the thing to note here is one mustn't mix up enthusiasm with excitement. Like your enthusiasm is for something bigger, higher. There's an ideal. So it enthuses you. You're not, it's a push from within to actually unite with the whole. So your starting point is in you relating to your world. So there's an enthusiasm to see the divinity everywhere. Everything becomes wow. When there's an excitement, it becomes imbalanced. But an enthusiasm is always keeping your perception, emotion, and thoughts in check, in alignment with your ideal. That's a Sattvik. When it slips off, it's become Rajasik, Tamasik, whatever it may be. So there's a mumukshatva, a burning desire to have that freedom, to be free, not be bound by one's perceptions, emotions, and thoughts, but to have that freedom to be objective, totally. So there's an enthusiasm to get there. Until you get there, you won't rest content. So you wake up in the morning and think, how am I going to get further along this path of mumuksha? It's like, it's a feeling of wow in the morning. Then your desires come in and dampen it. So you've got to deal with the desires correctly. No fruit of action. The ego from behind. So this is the practice. But that firmness, dhruti, consistency of purpose to pursue that divinity, fuels that enthusiasm. It's not sporadic. It's like a constant reminder. In actual fact, in your day, just be alert to how many times you think, wow, is it really like this? The privileges that you have all the time, have that appreciation. You can always think of what I don't have, but think of what I do have. I can see. I see the sun. My blood is clotted. My skin is healed. I can walk. I have food. I have clean water. These are basic things that you're privileged to have. I can breathe. Take your breathing away for 30 seconds, 1 minute. You see whether it's important or not. I wear glasses. Somebody designed the lens of the glasses. It wasn't down to me. But I can't attribute it's me who is offering this knowledge. It's not, it's just something going from me. It's there. I just happen to be a vessel for the moment. So it's getting on with it, but it enthuses you to understand there's a divinity functioning everywhere in this diversity. Can you spot it? Can you join the dots so you live in harmony rather than friction? You develop your enthusiasm. Absence of ego. Tim, do you have some?
I was just going to add that up until the 18th century in English, the word enthusiasm meant a spiritual pursuit, and a spiritual pursuit was an enthusiasm. The two words meant the same thing.
So that understanding, I think I also remember reading that somewhere. So yes, as you rightly say, point out. Go within and draw out your own enthusiasm. Sattvik actor. So an actor is one who's doing something, yes? Not sitting pretty.
Yes. Sorry for interrupting. Payalji, there's a question noise coming. I don't know if it's just me or if you. Thank you.
Maybe from here. Okay. It's okay, everyone? Okay. So when you consider an actor, you're not sitting pretty doing nothing. An action, you've thought through what it is that you need to do, that knowledge backing it, and then you act upon it. Sattvik actor. Very much in line with something bigger. Not bound by preference or prejudice. The goods and bads happen in life. We're full of goods and bads happening, but we're not attached to them. We're objective to it. People come and go, we're not attached to that. Jobs come and go, we're not attached to that. Our only attachment is to that mumukshatva, to liberate, to get to the truth. That's what you're allowed to be attached to. And even that you have to drop at the end stages. Let's go. 27.
Ragi karma pala prepsu lubdo himshatmako suchihi harsha shokanvita karta rajasa parikititaha.
Sam, if you'd like to read.
An actor who is passionate, desirous of fruit of action, greedy, cruel, impure, moved by joy or sorrow is called Rajasika.
So, passionate. What's the difference between enthusiasm and passion? That's what you have to ask the question. Anybody?
Is the bondage, the attachment, the difference?
Okay. An actor who is passionate, desirous of fruit. What was the other one? Endued with firmness and enthusiasm, not egotistic. A Rajasik actor, full of ragi, passion. Generally, in our society, we say you should be passionate. But in spiritual parlance, we put that forward in the sense that you have this passionate passion. So in your passion, you don't fall victim, but you're objective to your passion, so you can actually ride it well. To be objective, you've got to have that ideal, which is higher ideal. So not victimized by it. That excitement. So a person who's getting excited about the fruit, passionate, that backdrop of desires driving them. So an ideal's not driving them, but the result of action and the backdrop of desire is driving the Rajasik person, the Rajasik actor. But they are constantly victimized by their passions, constant craving for the result of their actions in their pursuit. That craving and that pursuit to gain the result of their activities fuels more desires, so that more desires fueled creates that greed in them, that avarice. You know, you get one thing and then up props another desire, and then you want that. It's all outward, material. More is never enough. Enough is never enough. When is enough? Enough is the title of one of the talks we have. So greedy, never satisfied, mentally cruel. Sometimes you might have to be physically cruel to be kind, as Shakespeare puts it. You might do something which might feel a little bit harsh, but it's actually in the interest of the person. A person may have to, I don't know, you may pull them from running into the road very abruptly if it's a child. It might seem harsh to them, but you save them from getting into trouble. So it could be harsh that way. But here it is the opposite. It's mentally cruel. There's no thought to the other. You don't mind being cruel for your own interest. You gladly kill another animal for your own interest. You like the taste, no concern to others. You gladly harm your neighbor so that you get the better some way. A Sattvik person's not mentally cruel, ever. A Rajasic person, that impurity enables that cruelty. They think everything should cater to them. Desirous, greedy. When the sorrow comes, if they don't get it their way, there's a big kerfuffle, fuss, the stress, agitation. When the joy comes, they're jumping up and down with excitement. It's not an enthusiasm, it's a different enthusiasm. It's not really an enthusiasm, it's jumping up and down with all that joy, but it goes because it's not with something bigger in place, not something universal, it's just with self-interest or interest of your own little clan or clique. So it affects you. Let's read it.
The verse enumerates the characteristics of a Rajasika Karta, actor. Ragi, passionate. The Rajasika actor is desire-ridden, a victim of passion. A human possesses desire, but one should not be victimized by it, become a slave of passion.
So that's when it enslaves you, you're a victim, you're in trouble.
Karma phala prepsu, desirous of fruit of action, possessed by like and dislike brought in from the past, rendering him passionate. The passion percolates into his action, further into the result of action, It becomes desirous of fruit, yearns for fruit while engaged in action, causing mental agitation, impeding action and achievement of result.
So it's all the time is mind worrying, when am I going to get the result? I'll only do this if I get the result. So your pursuits are only, if I get this, am I going to do it? If I don't get this, I won't do it. If I get this job, I will do that. So there's a constant desire, and if you don't get it, you get upset. Let's read the next one. Greedy.
Lupta, greedy. Desires are insatiable. Hence, the mind is compared to fire. The more one acquires, the more the mind wants to acquire. It could be wealth or power, name or fame, anything. Desire is never satiated. That need not make life static. One should plan and pursue a higher goal in life and not be obsessed with the desire to develop greed.
So you never should not aspire for the sky, but it's that attachment to the fruit of action which kills it off. And that multiplies like bacteria. Once you've got that result, you're on to the next desire, and it multiplies endlessly. So it's got to be a higher goal in place to deflect that greed. A higher ideal can never be of self-interest only. It may encompass your interests, but it's never of your interest or clique or clan. The higher the ideal and the potency in your action, the more universal your ideal, the more you free yourself up. That passion doesn't affect you in the way that it's negative. It actually drives you to go inwards to create enthusiasm. Dispassionate passion. Cruel. Matsakmaha.
Himsatmakaha, cruel. A Rajasika actor pursues passion at the expense of others, turning cruel at times. To satisfy his passionate desires, he would torture, even destroy beings, like adorning himself with silks drawn from thousands of live worms thrown into boiling water, indulging in perfumes extracted from animals through protracted torture, satisfying the palate by slaughtering millions of innocent creatures. Rajasika actor can hurt others even emotionally, being rude or insulting. Some Rajasika actors cause intellectual cruelty also by stifling others' thought through political, social, or religious compulsions.
So it's, you have to think about that. How does that happen? Intellectual cruelty, emotional cruelty, physical cruelty. We see this the world over. That's why we have lots of things going on, the cause and effect of disasters. There's cruelty. You have to suffer it if you've been part of it. If you're seeing, identifying with others, how can you do that? They're all part of the same part and parcel of you. That identification is lacking. That you can't live in harmony with your surrounds or others. I feel we need to take. Impure.
Asuchi, impure. Rajasika actor is impulsive with strong likes and dislikes. He lacks the discipline to keep his environment clean and tidy. His actions mature and methodic. Infested with selfish desire, his mind also entertains impure emotion and feeling. It remains disturbed, agitated. Again, his intellect manipulates to satisfy his selfish motive, thus rendering his thoughts also impure.
Likes and dislikes. With selfish motive. Swadharmic nature is predominantly your likes. You're inclined to pursue your innate tendencies. But if that's not pitched on a bigger ideal, it putrefies, keeps you agitated. So likes and dislikes manipulate you. Last one, moved by joy and sorrow. Go ahead.
Harsya Sokanvitaha, moved by joy and sorrow. The world comprises joy and sorrow. Neither can exist alone. Identifying with joy or sorrow, one becomes affected by it. The intellect is not strong enough to remain objective, to prevent the mind from being affected by passing emotions. A Rajasika actor is thus moved by joy and sorrow,
which keeps you in constant stress. So there is joy in the world and there is sorrow. You can't avoid that. That is the nature of the world, it's opposites. But it's how you move through the joy and sorrow which makes the difference. It's Sattvik, Rajasik or Tamasik. On that, we'll end till next week. Hari Om.